Hey guys, welcome to Signal Before Silence. In today's episode, we're going to just freestyle, okay? Because there's so much that has gathered up that I want to talk about, and I think it's better to just package it than to try and remember to put it in different episodes when it's appropriate. Also, as you may notice, I sound really terrible. I feel like garbage and I'm sick. I'm very sick, but I'm trying not to skip an episode. It's quite difficult to speak, but freestyling probably is not smart. I could just let AI talk on some topics, but no, there are some things that I do want to touch up on. I can see in the comments that some people get quite upset that I'm not touching up on the hoax theory of Charlie Kirk. So we'll touch up on that, and you're not going to like it. And then you're not going to like some more things about that I'm going to say, because there's a certain type of people that absolutely feel so strongly that they know it all. Like there's no question, hands down, they have the answer and everybody else just stupid for not seeing it. It doesn't occur to them that maybe we see a lot of things, but after some calculations and tossing up ideas, it just doesn't hold water. But we'll walk through that. I understand why some people think Charlie Kirk didn't die. I get the points that triggered that thought, but I do want to debunk you. And if you're one of those people that's going to be like, that's it, you're controlled opposition, unsubscribe. I mean, Jesus Christ, guys. Like, do you not see that's the problem with humanity? The emotional responses and inability to see another perspective. I actually did not imagine that me giving my 2 cents on Trump would trigger that. The fact Trump has failed the base, that goes without saying, but God forbid you suggest that maybe that more appears like a man who has a gun to his face than propped up from birth to be this person that's doing all the stuff that he's doing, the things that we don't like. Pardon me. And I also want to actually talk about Kirk's case and how it really relates to another case that we have kind of forgotten about for the most part. The similarities are too insane. I'm talking about Luigi Mangione, because I think the right immediately pushed that towards left's lunacy of how they're celebrating, death and how deranged they are, that just because the guy is hot, they're just like, there's no rhyme or reason. Instead of seeking truth, whether he did it or not, they're just suggesting he should just go free. And I think that's just done the guy disservice, really, if he's innocent. But one thing that I did notice is his constitutional rights are being violated. There's documentaries being made that he is guilty and he's the killer when the trial hasn't happened yet. If I was somehow cut in God knows what kind of BS like this, I would hope to have a fair trial. And I think we have to remember that in America, you're innocent until proven guilty. And the amount of insane shenanigans that have gone on around Tyler Robinson and Luigi Mangione are extremely similar. And we ought to ask the question, why are these seemingly exemplary men, seemingly well-behaved, polite, from good families, good grades, intelligent white men, villainized? And if they are the villain, how did they get caught in that? Are they the villain? Did they pull the trigger? Did they somehow end up on the scene? Were they running an errand? Were they set up? Or were they actually a patsy? Were they a MK Ultra project? What is going on? And I think it's important to just toss up some ideas and definitely not memory hold it. I keep thinking how much I would like to stir away and start talking about the fun subjects, right? Like the ancient history and all that. But right now we're going through time where our entire reality is being reprogrammed. We are being told not to believe our own eyes. Everything is shifting psychologically for us, and we need to stay on top of it and at least see something through, right? Let's say Tyler Robinson or this Mangione kid, let's see it through. because they hope we have a memory of a goldfish that we can just forget and move on. And most people do. And, we need to try to stay on top of certain stories until it fulfills. So that doesn't mean, of course, nonstop we're just going to talk about that singular topic, but every now and then we have to stay on top of it and revisit it, because when we let it go, our realities shift. Infrastructures get put in place towards a dystopian future that one day we're just going to not be able to escape. We're already there. The only reason why I don't feel like we're in sci-fi future yet is because, one, it's being done slowly. Imagine if you're a person from, 70s, and now we're looking at AI, facial recognition, and FaceTiming each other from across the globe, internet, right? If you just were to be dropped from 70s immediately into this future, this would already seem quite dystopian. But because we're just slowly inching up to it, it doesn't feel that way. And similarly, we might find ourselves in a horrendous scenario of ultimate enslavement with no escape options. For those who love freedom, this already feels like you're at a choke point. But it can get a whole lot worse, and it will. They're pushing digital IDs on UK. And from what I'm hearing, I'm going to paraphrase it because I haven't done the research myself on this one. But my brother was saying how there's only 2 million people who have signed a petition to reject this. What's the population of UK? That's 69 million people. So let's say 70, round it up. 70 million people, and only 2 million are signing that they don't want this garbage. The rest are just sitting and saying, yep, let's eat more shit. That's my brother's line. I stole it. All right, which one do we do first? Let's go with Trump. In one of my videos, I said that Trump didn't understand how deep the swamp was, and that the fact that it was also in his household, and hence he is now, in my opinion, not blackmailed, rather threatened. Now you can get into the semantics of what is blackmail versus threat, but the comments I got, my God, it's like some people literally just like, unsubscribe, pure controlled opposition. And I'm like, wow, guys, like not every human who has a different opinion from you is controlled opposition. So not every human who thinks differently than you is stupid. Somebody was like, I thought you were smart enough. Trump is the swamp. Okay, that's your opinion. You don't have to insult people. That's not really nice. But here's the thing. More certain you are, I have to say this. If you're 100% sure of what you're saying, I promise you're not the smartest person in the room. Because you can create million hypotheses and run them through the simulations through time with evidence, with, in extensive amount of research. If you're going to judge Trump, let's say, right? I sure hope that every single thing he has spoken about since the 70s or for however long we have footage of him, I hope that's into consideration. I hope the observational behavioral patterns, the observed, behavioral patterns are playing a role in that. His ego and narcissism, let's call it. I don't think he's narcissistic in my opinion. I think he's just extremely high ego and emotionally not as mature, like maybe just kind of lacks the emotional maturity. But either way, that's in play. His family, his kids and their behavior is at play. That some of the things he's done or hasn't done is at play. There's so much. And when I didn't know Trump, I was accused of being a Trump supporter. Why? I didn't even know the guy, but all I knew is I'm being lied to. And I look back and I'm like, that's not what he said. Why are we pretending that's what he said? Right? I started being called a Trump supporter immediately just because I am just noticing that when I put his words in context, that is not what he's saying. So, needless to say, we got here, and let's say he is the swamp. Let's say, right now he's 100% in the swamp and acting like the swamp. That goes without saying. I'm talking about he was brought up for this position, for this moment. That's the part that I don't think or believe, because I have to think oftentimes, put myself in those shoes, and hence, based on your personality, you might come across a different story. Based on my personality, I might apply the gray zones and the nuances of my personality into that, included other people and other types of personalities, and come up with my opinion. I don't know if that's making sense. Let's make sense. Let's make it make sense. There's zero rational thought behind why, if he was their guy, and if he was supposed to be here and do this, why the amount of resources, money, and time was wasted and spent to bring him down. You either are completely uninformed or have fallen into the propaganda, but if you just strip your emotions out of hating Trump, just look at him as just a character. There was, without a doubt, for the last 10 years, he's been under fire, financially, legally, his family, the attempts on his life. You do not go after somebody that heavily unless you're afraid that you're going to be able to control them. That only signifies that he was a threat, that he might actually end up doing what he wants. And especially people who are absolutely sure that he's the swamp are also the people who are sure he's egotistical. Now you have a contradiction there. If a man is highly egotistical, he's not going to be in line with any particular plan that's not his. I think you misunderstand how ego and narcissism work. So if Trump is truly an egotistical maniac who only cares about himself and is a narcissist, doing exactly as he's told is not going to be cutting it. Because let's face it, everybody who is in the shadows and is puppeteering is in control. They own everybody, every politician, whether they know it or they don't know it. Whether it's Charlie Kirk, who is an asset who slowly wakes up, whether it's people like Ted Cruz, who probably is completely bought out and is just happily in place. Maybe, I don't know, Rubio for sure. Ted Cruz, maybe he's just a moron. Either way, you have to put in the nuance of human aspect into any story that you're assessing. I have gone back and forth on Trump a million times. It's a moment where I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe we fell for this. He was exactly the swamp. And then I've gone to like, okay, well, that's not fitting in. That's not making sense. Looks like something odd happening here. Looks like he's just, as for a billionaire, he seems a bit gullible and naive. Like, is he just super sharp in some senses, but kind of gullible and naive when it comes to people because he keeps trusting the wrong type of people? And then I consider, or is it not just really gullibility? Maybe it's not that. Maybe he knows exactly who he's bringing in, but that doesn't appear that way, because then he starts fighting it, and that appears genuine as it drains everybody's resources, including his own resources and time. So there's just so much that goes into this. And I think just to scream he's the swamp and immediately just be so closed off to potentially like ask, oh, I was listening to you, Naira, and I've been respecting you up until now. I think you're a smart, intelligent person. Tell me more. Tell me why do you think he's not the swamp? Instead of saying that, your response is, oh, I thought you're smarter than that. Unsubscribe. That is not normal, and that is not a sign of intelligence. I don't like saying that, but that is an emotionally driven answer. You have a problem with the person not having the same opinion as you, and you don't appear interested as to why is that. And you're not also interested that maybe you're wrong. Maybe, just maybe. I mean, you got to be able to be more self-aware than that. But yeah, I would say if you're catching yourself thinking that, one, you know 100%, there's without a shadow of a doubt, not even a 0.00001%, and that you know for a fact the other person is wrong and you're right, I would say catch yourself and just think about why is that. Just saying, humble yourself and check yourself. I think your heart is in a good place. Consider the fact you may be wrong. I consider the fact that I may be wrong all the time. In fact, I constantly debunk myself all the time. What was the other topic? The hoax theory of Charlie Kirk. Okay, there's this theory that all of this was a hoax. It didn't happen. Charlie Kirk is alive and well. This was all just a show. Okay, let's say it was. Now, then there are theories. It happened because of capabilities of Hollywood. I don't know, like somebody realized that you can hide a blood bag in a neck, so hence that's it. If we can hide a blood bag in the neck, that means all of this is exactly that. Okay? Just because we can do something doesn't mean that's the most practical and best way of doing it. But let's just say, okay. Then there's another crowd about the holograms, which that one just pisses me off. Because if you look into hologramic technology, or if you've ever tried to project anything holographically, if you've ever tried to work with sunlight, daylight, and projections, you will quickly realize that we do not have the technology to have created a perfectly viable hologramic event in broad daylight. It's just flat out stupidity. Not to mention even the best 360 view hologramic equipment. Let's say you have the dark light and the shade and everything is, whatever. It is still not 360. Actually, the best view is from the front and maybe somewhat of the sides. But the second you're completely on a side, behind, or at a bizarre angle, it falls apart. So let's just cut the hologram at least out of this. The Hollywood blood bag. Have you seen a movie scene? Have you seen what it takes to create the movie scene to look real? The amount of technology around it and how that happens until it arrives to your screen. Just perfectly believable. So it's highly, highly unlikely for this to have been just some kind of a Hollywood stunt. Why? Let's say this was a Hollywood stunt. Why does it fall apart? One, every single human in that stadium would have to be in on it. Maybe minus all the people who can't see him in the back. Everyone had to be in on it. Let's say everyone was in on it. Why? Can you give me a really good reason why a 31... So actually, no, let's come back. Any investigation that you want to do, you want to identify who's the beneficiary of this event. What's the motive? Who benefits? Motive and benefit. And then how is the crime scene being handled? Okay. So, and all the forensics, autopsy, blah, blah. So, okay, we're missing the autopsy, forensics, crime scene being revamped. Completely understandable. I don't see much reason why the crime scene would be completely revamped if that was just a Hollywood stunt. Not much reason for that. Okay, let's say some fake blood got on the grass. Okay, fine. I'll give you that. And then the next question is, the most important forensic question is, what's the motive and who benefits? The only person that would have a motive or somewhat benefit would be Charlie Kirk. However, that would not be a benefit at all for a 31-year-old to say goodbye to everything he's ever worked for, his wife and kids, because his wife and kids are operating and continuing to live life. If he stayed with his wife and kids, in like 3 seconds, he would be exposed to have been alive. So, so it would require him to actually just disappear from this earth. Go find some third world country, some island and whatever, and just be like, I don't need to live life. Because I value life so much, I'm going to stop living it. That makes no fucking sense to me. A 31-year-old entrepreneur with the amount of fire that he must have had to build what he had built is not the person who's trembling in fear for his life. He's more interested in living. Why do I say that? Is because I can see a possible scenario where I will agree to stop living life just so that I'm alive. I love life. I would never want to put my family or people who love me through the pain of losing a loved one. I'd be dead. I wouldn't know the difference. So it's not even about me. But there's no way in hell I would say goodbye to everything I've ever cared for to go and just go into some dark hole and just never see light again. I mean, that is the most absurd thing when it comes to this faking life. Like, I understand some like elderly CIA assets retire that way, right? They just change names and identities and just, fuck off to the world. But nobody cares about them. They're not a public figure. Nobody's going to just recognize them, right? It's whatever. Someone like Charlie Kirk, he would literally have to remain concealed. Now, I try to think like these people who are so passionate about the whole hoax theory, and I'm like, okay, what could possibly make them think this way? Let's just put a tinfoil hat, like a real, like big tinfoil hat, and say this was all planned by the deep state, right? Let's say this was not planned by Charlie. This was planned by deep state, which, by the way, for Charlie to have planned this, every single person must have been involved, right? So now way too many people know that he's not dead. That's already just ridiculous. Way too many people would have to be involved. Among them, way too many people who wanted him dead. So that's interesting. Now, what would make sense, right? What are the two scenarios that would make the hoax work? Now, that would be A, they actually are planning that these, puppeteers of the world are planning a psychological show. He's gonna resurrect, right? Everybody's showing some numbers, plugging and subtracting numerology stuff. And look, I get it. There's people who really believe in that stuff. Do I think that the actual puppeteers of the world give a fuck about numerology? I don't think so. I really, really do not think so. They care about gold, money, property. They care about their egos and controlling the world. They could not give a shit about adding and subtracting numbers. Now, they can have fun with some of that. They can, drop a music video before attacking a country where the music video clearly is just looking like, oh shit, that country is about to get hit. Or they drop a simulation before they drop a bio weapon onto people, a virus, let's say. They definitely tell you what they're going to do before they do it. If you follow World Economic Forum, yes, they absolutely tell you what they're going to do before they do it. Now, did they sit there and add and subtract numbers? I doubt it. If they did, one day, if it makes sense, I'll admit I was wrong. However, all these numerology people who are adding and subtracting numbers, I'll get back to what would make the hoax theory believable in a second. All these numerology people that just, hindsight is 20/20, guys, okay? You're sitting there and saying, this adds up to 134 and this adds up to 134 and all these seemingly unrelated things should be related all of a sudden because they all add up to 134 and 66 and this and that and blah, blah, blah. Dude, I can literally sit there and create a fake story on the numerology. Like, it's absurd to me. It's absolutely absurd to me. There are some times where significant amount of numbers and significant amount of incidents match, and that becomes curious. Okay? That becomes curious. But when I see this extremely elaborate numerology episodes, and it's just constantly adding and subtracting, and it's just like, do you guys see? No, not because we're stupid. It's just because I can sit there and create any story like that. So now, if you truly believe in this, and this is projecting reality, this is when I would believe you. Prove to me that this is exactly true, and you are that smart, and you are that gifted. Sit down and add and subtract the next, in order, the next 3 major events, and with their dates and the details. Dates, details, events that is going to happen because it's already pre-planned. Okay? Give me that with as much precision as you are doing now in hindsight. Give me that. And when those 3 things back to back happen, not like 100 things happen and 3 of them match. No. You come up with 3 scenarios and all 3 happen. Even 2 happen, I'll be like, okay, interesting. Okay. The 3rd one will just be like, you know what? I apologize. That's science. Until we see that, I'm not going to give room for numerology. Now, what would make Charlie Kirk's hoax theory more believable? 1, if there is such interesting plan to resurrect him, right? Because here's the thing, when you have a lot of money, not Charlie Kirk, but the world owners, the New World Order, whatever, there's a reason why these people are constantly caught in pedophilic rings and just obnoxiously disturbing things, is because you gotta entertain yourself somehow. Imagine you have everything and there's 0 challenge in your life. You're gonna have to create some amusement, and these people just go the horrendous route, but that's what has happened throughout history all the time. Back in the day, kings and queens would sit at a coliseum and watch people butcher each other to death while it's sport for them. It's sport for them. There was amusement. They would see the blood and the gore. Now we have decided we're civilized and we don't do that. However, we're not civilized. We're just wearing the mask, but we're the same people who have not evolved into another level. The same people need amusement. So, I can easily see them just be like, what would be funny and fun and interesting? Let's just, give them the story, then make it happen. Give them the story, then make it happen. And then one day we'll just come out and say, we are gods because, see, we predicted all this perfectly well. You should follow us and listen to us. So I'm being sarcastic, but there's a lot of notion like that within these circles, within the elites who truly think they're God's gift on earth. Well, actually, they think they're God themselves. But let's say they're going to resurrect him. Then through your numerologies, tell me which date is that? Because if I try to take you seriously and take all the numbers you're mentioning seriously, then I would say October 10, Charlie Kirk should be resurrected. If he's not resurrected, then that was not a hoax. Just saying. Because if you're going to watch some random music video where his wife appears with a guy named Tyler, which is an extremely popular name in America, I myself know so many Tylers. So then you're going to take a date that's on the screen that's supposed to be, this is the moment. This is the predictive programming. Look, I believe in some predictive programming. Don't get me wrong. I'm not completely knocking these ideas completely. I'm just saying just not everything fits into this. Sometimes you're just shoving, what is that, round something in a square? No, round could fit in a square. Probably square into the round wouldn't. Yeah. Anyway, you know what I'm talking about. So then if that's the screen that is the predictive programming, then there's 910 and there's 1010. Is Charlie resurrecting on 1010? Is this the notion? Now, if Charlie all of a sudden comes back 1010, we're almost there. 6 more days. Oh my God, 6. Anyway. Excuse me. I don't take medicine or anything, so I am not actually delirious. This is just me truly just going off on you guys right now. Not all of you. But I see some comments that I'm just like, oh, you're adorable. But no, come on. We can do better. Okay, so that's one. If Charlie comes back on 1010, I will literally apologize and be like, whoa, I know nothing. I still say I know nothing, by the way. Okay? I know nothing. I speculate. I create million hypotheses and I want to just subtract and delete based on evidence coming in until it just starts making some coherent sense. Nothing about Tyler Robinson case was making sense until all of a sudden now we have him in the same clothing at DQ chilling, face showing. Now we have a new footage that dropped from a gas station the following morning, starting to tell a story, starting to tell a cohesive story, same clothing, no urgency, no rush, just chilling, gas, getting gas. Exact type of way you would behave if you're not in a hurry anywhere, you're not hiding from anyone, you didn't just commit the biggest crime of the couple of decades. Anyway, another way that I would believe that this was a hoax, if someone said, I was at the university that day and there was no Charlie Kirk event. None of that actually took place at the university. Because if you were to tell me that actually never happened, but that was shot in like a movie in a studio, and then everyone who believes it is just on the other end of the screen, then I would say, oh yeah, we watch movies that look very real. How would I know if I wasn't there? Now, again, two things would have to happen for that to be believable, that this was just a Hollywood set shot for all of us who are now living behind the screen, for us to think that this is what happened, but in reality it never happened. It was just a movie. Again, if insane amount of students, I'm not saying one or two people, okay? If all of the university students all of a sudden said, actually that event didn't take place, like I was there on Wednesday for class and none of that happened. That's one. The second one would be if all of the students said, actually Wednesday we were given off because the school was closed. None of us were allowed to go to school because of some event, right? So not a single real student went to the college because the college was closed. That would also become interesting. So those are the two scenarios where this was all just a movie set, would have made sense. But to say that the movie set took place in real time, imagine the risk of wanting to execute this in front of real people in real time, that I cannot believe. It doesn't make logical sense for many reasons. It's too risky. The only person that would have tried to fake his life would have been Charlie himself. And again, it would have to be the type of trembling coward to just say goodbye to everything and go live in the dark hole somewhere unseen. Even if it's a nice island, doesn't matter. Just completely unseen, just like, you know what? Yeah, I don't live to live my life anymore. It's fine. I just rather live. Just be alive. That doesn't make sense. The best option usually is the easiest one. He had enemies. He had people who wanted him to shut up, and they shut him up. That's the easiest way. And then you follow the money. What's happening around his death? What is happening around his death? Where is the money going? What is taking place? Is it going exactly the route and direction that Charlie was pushing towards? No. If he faked his death, he would at least try to puppeteer that towards his goals. That's not what's happening. It's just, there's no good logical argument about his death being fake or a hoax. But again, if he comes back on October 10, I'll apologize. There was one other thing I was wanting to talk about because it came to my attention. So when Luigi Mangione case happened, I was paying attention. I was like, okay, that's not adding up. All right, it's a little bit cut off, but let's take a look at this, okay? So first they released these images, these three, which was from Starbucks. This was the very first one. Oh, well, among those, here, Luigi. So first they released these images, right? Him taking the shot. Well, we can see the face, we can see clothing, and then a few images like that. But then immediately after, they gave us this top images, which was him at Starbucks. He's wearing his backpack, and there's another image with him on a bike getting away with the backpack. So then we look at these, and this is where that movie, the 1998 movie with Nicolas Cage about believe everything except your eyes comes to mind, right? So, I mean, look at this. You're trying to tell me that these eyebrows, okay, you can see it here. You can clearly see it. It's from above. It's from a very similar angle. It's from above, top to bottom. You can clearly see whoever this, if this is him, right? But at least he has the eyebrows. There are the eyebrows. Very, like, it goes quite down and over. I mean, these eyebrows are shaking hands, nearly. So this makes no sense. This is very clear that it is a open. You cannot tell me that is the same person as this. That is, you're asking me to not believe my eyes. Not only the nose also doesn't match at all, because he has this very actually like a very hard dip to more roundness. And granted, we don't see all of his nose, but that dip is very different also. But the eyebrows here, it's just like, come on. Like, you can't, this is disrespectful. This is disrespectful. So now we get this image, then a day later, or I don't remember, don't quote me on the timeline because I didn't follow his case as closely. I have been trying to catch up actually because it became interesting. So now then we are really like, we get these other images that he just, is just flirting with he just shot a man and then goes and just puts his face on the camera, flirts and all that. This is a valedictorian, exceptionally smart guy from an exceptionally wealthy family. Another part of the story was, and then he's recognized at McDonald's, right? So what are the similarities here is the similarities from a good conservative family, valedictorian or exceptional grades, from a wealthy family. Now, I don't know much about Tyler Robinson's wealth, but in the body cam video with the cop, he was with the Audi. Audi is okay, you don't have to be wealthy to have an Audi, but it's a nice car. And then his new car was a Challenger, which is, again, you don't have to be rich to have a Challenger, but it's a nice car. So needless to say, he's just, at least it's middle class, right? Now the Luigi Mangione, I'm talking about golf courses, nursing homes, like they own a lot. So needless to say, Luigi Mangione is not a kid who, if he needed a surgery, he's going to be caring about getting denied by medical establishment or insurance companies. So when you have wealth or when you have options, even moderate amount of wealth, you're not going to just gamble on your life. You're not going to just go to some random doctor and hope the insurance pays for it and all that. You're going to find a private doctor, the best you can possibly find, and you're going, especially spinal surgery, you're out of your mind. The only people who would do spinal surgery with a random doctor, those are literally people who absolutely do not have any means, and they have to gamble with their lives. They just have no other option. Even if you have remote amount of options, you're not going to do that. And I know this personally. I've never done a spinal surgery, but both of my legs, knees down, my tibia bones are cut in multiple places and restructured. I have metals and screws, knees down. So titanium doesn't ring. So when I had to get through this surgery, and I'm not wealthy, but I was an ambitious adult who was making good amount of money for her age, I went to the best possible doctor I could find. I wasn't going to gamble whether I'm going to walk again. You're out of your mind. It ruined me financially. I literally had to go negative God knows what and then just go all the way to the bottom and restart life again. It did do that to me. But it was worth it because I'm walking, okay? I'm walking, jumping, I can do construction. This is a very long way of saying it just makes zero sense that an extremely wealthy family would not get the absolute best professional in the world to do this surgery, and it would have nothing to do with insurance companies either, because these doctors usually aren't, most of them aren't just your regular, on insurance type of professionals. And then he goes and drops his backpack somewhere. I don't remember where exactly, but he just leaves the backpack behind. It's too much to carry. Now, he leaves the back. This is another thing that makes no sense. When he gets supposedly spotted at McDonald's, the cops go find him, and on him he has a ghost gun and this and this and that. So I'm sorry. So he had a backpack with all this stuff. Then he decides to just leave the backpack behind. But then he's caught again with the backpack with all the evidence in there again. What? And then, of course, there's a confession. It's a beautiful confession. It leaves the feds completely out of it, almost praises the feds, apologizes to his family, and states how he's acted alone. Nobody else absolutely was involved in this. And then, of course, there's engravings on the bullets. Of course, that has to be part of it. This is the trend. So all of that, supposedly. And then he's not cooperating. He's not guilty. He confesses and then drops his confessions with his backpack and all the evidence, with guns and bullets and all that, for cops to find. Then he flees, and they don't find him for 6 days. And then he's found, in Pennsylvania, chilling at McDonald's, eating some food with the laptop. So he's not even like, okay, let me grab this food and get the hell out of here before anyone recognizes me. No, he just sits down with the laptop and just eating McDonald's, which, honestly, I have to say, I could be completely wrong here. It could be optical illusion. But how is this that guy? I know it's cutting off a little bit, but how is this guy? That nose is different. Sure, there's the eyebrows. I can see it even. See? Do you see how he's wearing a hat and there's a shadow on his face, but you can see eyebrows? And you're telling me that this one and this one or this one are the same eyebrows? But anyway, so yeah, I have to say that this guy could be just a bad picture, bad shadow, whatever, but his nose completely has a different structure. I don't see how that's the same kid. He has almond eyes and just a very different energy and vibe with this kid versus this other one. Anyway, there's possibly 3 or 4 different people in these images that are supposed to be the same. But let's just pretend there's 2. Because there's no way I'm going to pretend there's only 1 here. So now, when I realized that they're not letting Tyler Robinson to be in the court, he is showing up remotely. That stirred a lot of suspicion yet again, and I was curious to see what's going on with Luigi Mangione case, actually, now that we've completely forgotten about the guy. So I looked into it, and holy crap, some interesting stuff are happening, and Tyler Robinson's lawyers need to take some serious notes. Tyler Robinson should be appearing in court in person. This is not okay, and this is not normal, that we are not seeing him in court. We need to see him in court. This is major red flag. Just like the no autopsy is a major... I get people commenting and saying there is an autopsy. What are you talking about? Where are you taking it from? The only thing I've heard about the autopsy is the fact that there is no autopsy. So let's look at that real quick. This is the only thing I've seen on autopsy, which is supposedly a dispatch audio, right? I don't know, has it been completely authenticated or not? What's going on? But this is the only thing I've seen on autopsy. Otherwise, as far as we know, we've been told there was no autopsy done. Then we were told it's required by Utah State. Then we're told a million things. But all we know is there is no autopsy. Nobody has seen it. And somebody literally just said, and the bullet recovered. No, where did you take that from? If that was true, we would have a lot of answers. We don't have answers, okay? So
I did do the request. They emailed me back. He did not go in for an autopsy. The death certificate was signed by the doctor at the hospital.
Oh, okay.
needless to say, that's, I don't have any evidence that autopsy has happened. If you do, and it's a real evidence, it's not just like, I don't know, Andrew Colvett at TPUSA said something, I'd be interested, but I have not seen evidence of that. So another thing I was going to show here, what was that? I just glanced through it. Damn it. Oh, I found this interesting too. FBI Cash Patel says social media has become out of control and the internet radicalized people like Tyler Robinson, Luigi Mangione. I do think, I'm not going to play him. He pisses me off. So let me just really quickly show you this, because this is the latest on Luigi Mangione, which caught my eye. I guess I'll just read. It says that Luigi Mangione's upcoming hearing in Pennsylvania has been canceled because he refuses to appear in court remotely. Smart man. That's a smart kid. He refuses to appear in court remotely, and hence it's been canceled. They are pushing it. They tried to actually, first they stopped allowing cameras in court because, God forbid, you can see the person, how he's conducting himself. Does he look shady, weird, worried? What's going on, right? Because that helps quite a bit. There's a lot of evidence on the person. So then they say, no more cameras in the courtroom. Then his lawyer started coming out and actually making sure that she addresses the public so they know what's happening in the courtroom. Now they're pushing for remote. So I do want to play a few things because I think it's so important. We have not heard Tyler Robinson say a single word, nor his family. We don't know a single thing about what's going on and what he's saying, other than we just have heard he's not cooperating. But we've heard a lot of things, right? In Luigi's case, before he advised with his lawyers, he had this outburst.
And completely out of touch, and it's an insult to the intelligence of the American people and the lived experience.
So needless to say, he has an outburst and he says something interesting. This is out of touch, and it's an insult on the intelligence of American people. What is he talking about? To me, right? I could be completely wrong, but to me, it sounds like he's saying this is ridiculous. How am I here in this position? I could be completely wrong. I'm just saying that's an interesting statement. And then, of course, his lawyer advises him not to speak anymore, and he stops speaking. But then they do this prep walk. And completely just so unnecessary. And I'm showing you this because this was ridiculous when it happened, and you're wondering what's going on, and you're wondering if the kid is in on it. Like, this is theater, obviously. And then it's interesting what the lawyer is saying now. So let's hear some of it. This is one of the legal team members.
What you're saying is that you are going to plead not guilty, not guilty by way of insanity or anything like that, just a plain and simple, clear not guilty.
Yeah. So first of all, about this outrage, he's irritated, agitated about what's happening to him and what he's being accused of. He never had any legal representation until he walked into that building yesterday. And I talked to him. And if you notice, look at the film, look at the difference between when he went in and when he come out. So once he got in, he finally had legal representation. I like to think he had somebody that he can trust and has faith in. And now he has a spokesperson and someone that's going to fight for him. And so I think you'll see a big difference in the demeanor. And I think that part of that, whatever you want to interpret that as yesterday, was a lot of the frustration, being a young man thrown in jail and being accused of very serious matters.
So that's interesting, right? Very interesting. So then TMZ puts out this entire 39-minute documentary about about Luigi, completely as if the case is done. Like, I'm not going to play, but the case is completely done. It's called What the Government Hasn't Told You About Luigi Mangione, exclusive. Now, I didn't finish it, so maybe there's a twist, but the entire beginning that I've watched so far is 100% representing him as the killer, referring to him not as alleged killer, but the killer. So this is his court raw hearing.
How do you plead to this indictment, sir? Guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty. People?
Your Honor, we have a copy of the
So
indictment,
now
notice of
these
immigration
people talk and then
consequences.
she talks.
They have conflicting theories in their indictments, and they're literally treating him like he is like some sort of political fodder, like some sort of spectacle. He was.
So this is very interesting. One, the entire time if you watch this raw footage from the court, you can see he's extremely sharp, extremely there and with it. Like he's definitely not mentally ill or anything like that. And he's constantly glancing over at her notes while looking at her. He's completely engaging. He's observing the room, the judge, like he's really sharp. And what she's talking about here is that they just keep making a spectacle of him, which is what happened. And I wonder if that, in one hand, that's a lot of support and has raised a lot of money that he probably doesn't need. In another hand, it has turned so many people away because they're like, oh, it just looks like a spectacle. So it's just like, whatever, okay, and moving on. Yet it could be caught in the middle of something serious and we don't know. We, as citizens, who any of us could be in this position, I don't know what makes them choose these particular guys, but there's commonality between them being well-behaved, seemingly, visibly well-behaved, young, intelligent American men. Okay, Mangione is Italian, but the million generation American, so it's just same as American. So either way, any of us could end up in a shitty position like this, and we have to be very careful not to overlook these things and make sure that the Constitution is not being violated and changed. We demand answers. So that's one interesting thing. Then we went over that, the prep walk. What is this?
Over this thing, and they're interesting, right? Is it a manifesto or is it a journal or a diary? If he keeps a private diary, that's for a different purpose than a manifesto. And as you say, it all ties into the terrorism charge. They've got this terrorism charge in order to bump this up to murder one with a potential penalty of life in prison. Correct. Without the opportunity of parole. If they don't have terrorism, they don't have without the opportunity for parole. So that's why terrorism has been alleged is in the mix.
So there are a couple of interesting things happening with this case because I've been catching up with it. One, they basically charged him like that so that they can push for life without parole. Then they also added some bizarre stalking related language to bump it up to federal level so that they can pursue death penalty because New York does not have death penalty. So there's something about this death penalty push that is quite interesting for both cases. And the terrorism charges got dropped from what I understand so far, that basically just didn't hold up. They dropped the terrorism charges because it just didn't hold up. He just killed one man and nobody else was terrorized around it, and there was no intention of terrorizing other people. So basically that got dropped. So it's just a homicide. And they're still trying to figure out how to push towards that whole death penalty thing. This was an interesting one. This whole section would be good to hear, but I'm not going to play all of it. I'll play just a little part of it. But basically, some that came before it, they did an illegal search and seizure of in his Pennsylvania house. So illegally searched the house, and they're not sure if they're just suppressing information or what's going on. But there's just some bizarre illegal Fed-related stuff keeps happening around this case as well. And then this is what she has to say about some other parts of it.
What I did not understand was how shocking it was that this week on HBO, in a documentary, I see the chief of detectives and the New York City mayor, full hair and makeup done, sitting down and giving an interview for television and talking about the evidence in Luigi's case, talking about police paperwork that we don't have, talking about forensics that we have not yet received. I guess we have now today, but I didn't when I was sitting there learning about the case, hearing an actor
on TV
play Luigi reading from a journal that they say is Luigi's, and we have yet to receive it from the prosecution. And so it's outrageous that they have time to go and prejudice Mr. Mangione's ability to receive a fair trial and go out and make these statements, but not give this to us. And so we are concerned, because if the chief of detectives is telling everybody about all this evidence, and what if it ultimately gets suppressed because it was an illegal search and seizure in Altoona, Pennsylvania, how is he going to get a fair trial? So those are a little bit more than I was allowed to say in court, but that's the gist of it. That's what my prepared remarks were, and hopefully will allow cameras in the court going forward. If not, I will continue to provide information. We put up a website that just has basic information. It's luigimangioneinfo.com.
It's all quite interesting. I when I have time, I do want to dive into those transcripts because it has become quite interesting to me.
Is because this, in my opinion, is a state level case. I do think that, like you alluded to earlier, it's overcharged just to bump it up to a federal case. And New York, as a state, does not have the death penalty. I do think this is a state level murder in the second degree case.
Yes.
That's where it rightly sits. And if that were the case, the death penalty would not even be on the table.
I agree with you. So murder of the second degree, it's just an intentional killing. That's it. Example in here is when A.G. Bondi appeared on Fox News on April 6th and said, the president's directive was very clear. We are to seek the death penalty when possible. It hadn't been done in 4 years. So the argument there is that this decision was driven by an executive directive rather than DOJ protocol.
This is extremely troubling to me because I am not against death penalty, actually. However, we better give death penalty to cases that, without a shadow of a doubt, are caught committing the crime. Okay? Child molesters, pedophiles. So everybody that they're right now protecting with not releasing the Epstein files, I would be absolutely for first finding out who these people are and what they're guilty of. And if they're guilty of what we think they're guilty of, then death penalty. 100% agree with that. If some heinous act or serial murderer or something just without a shadow of a doubt is proved, and we know it, we saw it, it's just again, there's no shadow of a doubt, I'm okay with death penalty. I'm not one of those people just like, no way, I don't care, just take them out. But we have 2 cases right now. We haven't heard about death penalty forever. Now we have 2 cases that are pushing for death penalty, and both cases, we aren't sure those are the shooters. That's not okay. That's not okay, and that's so alarming. That's so alarming when we see what's being pushed behind the scenes. I mean, what's being pushed is censorship, pre-crime. In England, they're pushing for digital IDs, even Real ID. Real ID, what it does is bumps you up to the federal level. When I moved, they gave me Real ID. I didn't even realize it was just automatic. So I got home and then I was like, what is this star on my driver's license? And then I was like, oh shit, like they actually just bumped it up to Real ID. So I go back and I was like, I would like to redo my ID and get a state level ID. And they're like, well, but you can't travel with your ID. That's fine. I'll drive. I'll use my passport. I don't care. I don't want your Real ID. So I went back and actually switched it back to state level. In some states, they don't allow it. It's just Real ID or that's it. So these are important things. And we have to be so cautious not to push everything towards all of our data to the federal government. Then we have zero protection from the state. And again, speech laws, all these ID related stuff changing. Basically, the 2030 goals are full blast on the way. $500 billion towards Stargate, $900 billion towards defense. Against who? It's probably just to get white Western Goyams fighting Muslims, and then the rest used against us here in case we manage to say the wrong thing. eventually. Like, where this is headed is no good. Oh, and I think it fits. It fits because it fits. Who is the guy that says the quiet part out loud consistently? Everything we see about this case so far, I'm not talking about Luigi's case. I wonder what was that about? I wonder if that was a trial run. Because sometimes these puppeteers, they do like to trial first and then pull the real trigger. They do that all the time. They start a war on a smaller country that nobody cares about, nobody knows about, then they control the information. This happened to Armenia. And then they turn around and do the exact same script again towards their bigger goals, like Palestine, for example. And you guys have to stay tuned for an episode I'm going to do on Israel account. There is such thing at CIA as an Israel account, and it's not what it may sound like. I thought Israel account sounds like, okay, well, we have an account on Israel. No. What Israel has is a backdoor to our CIA. Basically, they have the keys to the house. We don't have the keys to Mossad. So we are 100% infiltrated on paper through CIA documents. And how is this not the number one thing we scream about constantly? Oh, probably because people who tried, they accidentally committed suicide or got shot in the neck. I'm not talking about Charlie Kirk. I'm talking about JFK, for example. Well, he was pushing for FARA registration, foreign agent registration, which would have solved many problems. So you have Mossad with full keys to the house and CIA. So basically our CIA and Mossad are the same. They're the same. We are an occupied state, guys. We are an occupied state, and that's on paper. I'm going to do an episode on that when my voice is better. I want that to be a good episode. I do have to say, guys, like, I don't understand how every single human isn't noticing that lately this guy seems to be our president. He's the one addressing us. He's the one talking to us. He's the one multiple times in a row saying, I didn't kill Charlie Kirk. He's the one who had Freudian slip on, oh boy, that was hilarious. Yeah. Let's do that. I'm all over the place all of a sudden. Okay, look at this.
President Trump has been an incredible ally of Israel, incredible friend. We've had no one like him. What he did in his first term, in recognizing Jerusalem as our capital, moving the American embassy there, recognizing our sovereignty over the Golan Heights, getting out of the disastrous Iran deal, and then, of course, now joining us in the effort to prevent Iran from getting nuclear weapons by taking out some of these nuclear sites with us. I think it's great. I read somewhere this ridiculous, this ridiculous lie. President Trump does what he does because he decides what's in America's best interest.
That's verbatim, okay? He literally said, I read somewhere this ridiculous lie that President Trump does what he does because he decides what is America's best interest.
And I've said this often, I don't decide a thing for President Trump.
And he continues, I said this often, I don't decide, I think for Trump. What? What is this guy talking about? Are we all of a sudden supposed to think that his English is no good? Mi no habla inglés anymore? Why is he sounding like that? That's a Freudian slip after Freudian slip if this was accidental. It's probably accidental because, actually, I don't know. I don't know. He just literally said all the things that Trump has done for Israel, which is far more things than he has done for America. Then he goes on saying it's ridiculous that there's a lie that President Trump does what he does because he decides what is best for America. Yeah, I agree. That's a lie because he doesn't do what's best for America. He's doing what's best for Israel. And then he says, I don't decide. I think for Trump. What? What is this about? How have I not saved the one where he is talking about taking over media, that buying TikTok? Because people used to think that's a rumor. But now we know for a fact that he's out loud saying that he's buying TikTok because the information warfare is important against Americans. You guys have likely seen this, but let me play. My screen is not calibrated for shorts, but was it this one?
Christian influencers. Okay. You said, we talked about the woke right. And he said, I call it the woke Reich. That's a brilliant observation. The woke Reich, because these people, you know, they're not any different from the woke left. I mean, they're insane, they're lunatic. But they're actually meeting on some of the things. And what we have to do is we have to secure that part of the base of our support in the United States. That is being challenged systematically. A lot of this is done with money. Money of NGOs, vast. Money of governments, vaster.
Yesterday, that was anti-Semitic.
We have to fight back. How do we fight back? Our influencers. I think you should also talk to them if you have a chance. To that community, they're very important. And secondly, we're going to have to use the tools of battle. You know, the weapons change over time. And the most important ones are the social media. And the most important purchase that is going on right now is class?
Followers.
TikTok. TikTok. Number one. And I hope it goes through because it can be consequential. And the other one, what's the other one that's most important? X.
It's hard to watch.
That's very good. And,
very good.
You know, so we have to talk to Elon. He's not an enemy. He's a friend. We should talk to him. Now, if we can get those two things, we get a lot. And I could go on other things, but that's not the point right now.
I think Elon, I'm sure Elon got you because I think my ex is pretty suppressed, actually. I'm seeing people, the kind of, like, I am so thankful to you guys. I see how actively do you share stuff. Someone who's a media manager, not media manager, like they basically consult people to grow their YouTube channels. Someone looked at my numbers and they're just like, wow, like your viewership versus comment engagement is phenomenal. He was basically saying like, this is insane. This should be like shooting up. And for a second, of course, it did shoot up according to that engagement. But then, boy, did they just put a stop to it. It has been so hardlined and stopped that even my viewers, they're like, I don't understand. You have no idea how much engagement I alone am creating for you through my socials, by sharing, by making other people share. And the fact that the channel doesn't grow at all, that's insane. Like, it's really annoying because I know we have to fight this. And that's like what keeps me going, because otherwise, like, if I was in on it for any other reasons, I'd just be like, okay, this is obviously not going to work. The channel is over. But I'm really hopeful that one day, slowly we'll find ways to break that algorithm. I don't know if that's possible. You know, the algorithm's supposed to actually serve people, but then people behind the algorithm can then just press a button and say, nope, right? So I don't know what will happen with this channel, actually. But I am really thankful to you guys for being so active and realizing what's happening. Like, I am hardcore suppressed and I'm a small account. So some of the already existing people are definitely also suppressed in many ways, but they're too big, right? Nobody cares anymore. So now they're just like, okay, we have enemy number one, Candace Owens. We have Tucker Carlson, Ian Carroll. We have Megyn Kelly, who's, you know, she's probably a lot easier to control. She seems like she's still not realizing, you know, where is the threat coming from, even though she's feeling very threatened by that threat. But they're also becoming perhaps maybe smart or something because they are not allowing new voices to grow. Because what if, God forbid, new people who are critical of Israel become also voices now? There's now that if they have a handful, now there's another one and another one and another one. I've seen so many channels get deleted and dropped and so on. Mine is still there, but it's definitely just suppressed. Another thing I'll say, since I should remember to say these things at the beginning of the video. I am so bad at self-promoting, it's ridiculous. But there are quite a few of you that kept asking me in what way you can support, besides, of course, the obvious engagement. And some people were asking if I can create a membership so they can pay and this and that. I don't know about that. Maybe at some point, if I was smart. I am I need to think about money making. I am so focused on making sure my content is good and everything. I haven't had time to sit down and create maybe a shop, right? Because, if you're going to donate anything, I much rather you have something in return to that. Granted, you're getting the content, I suppose, but I would prefer if you're going to spend any money, you get something in return. So I need to spend the time to maybe create some fun shirts or whatever, just open a shop. Just haven't had the time. But another thing that I hadn't had the time was to at least give you like a PayPal or something, because people are like, I really want to support you. I don't know what to do. I can't use Bitcoin, which is another funny thing. Ideological thing. I just put Bitcoin wallet there, knowing that majority of people don't know how to use it. But either way, so now I have opened the PayPal just for that reason. So I'm going to link it to both my top of the comments, pin it to the comments, and it's always going to be in the description. I feel really weird about that. I'm not asking for money, but either way, there is the PayPal link in case you really, really want to support. I will not. It's up to you. I'll be grateful, but I would prefer to create a shop and at least give you back something. But so yeah, just wanted to guys let you know now I have that pinned or in the description. At this point, I completely lost the train of my thought because we were freestyling this episode. And but I guess the last words is, speech is extremely important, and we see that those who hate speech, those who are threatened by speech because they just cannot fight it, because they have no value to offer, so they have to shut you down, are now coming out in the open and saying that this is what we're doing. Like, things that supposed to be secretive and anti-Semitic yesterday, now we're just like, yeah, we're buying TikTok, and God willing that goes through, and we put our IDF on get busy with it. This is the part I don't understand. How is every Jewish person not revolting against this? Like, how is every Jewish person not saying, yo, this is not cool. This is harming us. This is not good for us. Cut the shit, man. Like, how are they not? Like, I know they were boycotting Netanyahu. I know they wanted him gone and all that. But how is this not increasing to a level where this monster cannot stay in power? The only sensible conclusion I can come to is because they don't have a problem with it. Is the brainwashing, I mean, again, like, if you go watch the documentary called Defamation, the brainwashing is serious. They do brainwash hardcore their poor kids. And this is when the times I just become so appreciative of Armenians, I have to say. I had a Jewish friend reach out to me, call me Nazi, call me that I speak the way I speak because I have an inferiority complex. I respect Armenia because I have inferiority complex because I just make it more than what it is. But one thing they will never understand, why I talk about Armenia, why I respect Armenia, is because something as simple as this: Armenians care for their children. That's it. They do not create soldiers out of them. They do not brainwash them and ruin their entire mental freaking psyche so that those can serve as soldiers towards power for Armenia. They care about their children. I did not grow up hating a single fucking person until I moved to US and then realized that everybody that was around me, like Turkey and Azerbaijan, of course, and even Georgians. My goodness, I was at a party and I met a Georgian. By now, I had already so many insane encounters with Turkish people in United States. Some good ones too, so I don't want to make it sound like they're all bad or anything. I actually have some very good encounters with Turkish people that threw me off after the bad ones. So I met this Georgian guy, and then I was like, oh my God, finally a Christian, a Christian neighbor. We love you guys. And then he said, you do? I was thrown off. I was like, wait, hold on. I'm Armenian. You said you're Georgian. You meant the country, right? He's like, yeah. I was like, why? You guys don't? He's like, no, we hate you guys. I was like, hold on, what? Why? Why do you hate us? Like, what? what is this campaign against Armenians? And then he's like, oh, he said something so silly and stupid. He was like, oh, because you guys are pro-Russia. Huh? It's just insane. But yeah, Armenians love their children. So hence, no, we refuse to pump their brains with garbage and hate so that they can become hateful machines to take revenge. Okay? Hence, we have always been those who have just slowly given away our country piece by piece. It's been taken and taken because we're not traumatizing the kids to become vicious machines. So that would be really hard for them to understand. If you guys have been a long-time viewer of me, you probably know every now and then I've inserted that I have Jewish friends, and it's been very interesting through this process. The guy who called me Nazi is a hardcore Zionist friend. In every party we've ever held, every single person afterwards had come up to me and said, wow, that guy is a prick. That guy is a supremacist prick. And this is way before anything about Zionism, or it was not popular. So I defended him and I said, well, it's okay to be friends with pricks too. Like, it's okay to forgive people. You don't know where it's coming from. Yet, it took him one episode on my other channel, not this channel, The Silent Oak, for him to listen to the Charlie Kirk debate between me and my co-host and to come and call me Nazi because I was pointing fingers that Israel's behavior is really odd around this. So, yeah, that is the tragic reality of the world. Thank you guys for being here. I can't believe my throat held up somewhat. Subscribe, share. Please continue doing what you do with the pushing the algorithm. I think once maybe people with more following can give me a shot. So maybe that will be some way to grow the channel. But for now, it is what it is. But yeah, thank you. I'll see you guys next time.
So I'll get to Charlie in a second because I was actually at the hospital where the whole thing happened. My producer called me that he got shot. So the first thing I did was get in a car and drive to the hospital. So I showed up and the whole scene was just really weird to me. First and foremost, there were very little amount of journalists that really shocked me. Then another weird thing that happened was this whole story about him being on some kind of life support. They even told us that for a second, he had a pulse. All that obviously is not true. Charlie was dead from the as soon as he got shot, I would say. And another thing is, I had this strategy that I wanted to maybe try out. I looked at Tyler Robinson's case and I thought, well, why don't I get this guy a lawyer? Because that at least puts me near him. And this is times where they couldn't find the guy a lawyer and they were kind of scrambling around to figure out who was going to be his lawyer. And I started approaching different firms in Utah. When I did find a lawyer that was certified to represent Tyler Robinson, obviously I needed a consent from Robinson's family or Robinson himself. Ironically, we were unable to get in touch with the parents, and the only sources that got close to the parents, they kept telling us that they don't need a pro bono lawyer. In fact, they don't care if we have a badass lawyer for Tyler Robinson.
Can you clarify something? The family was telling you this, his parents, or an intermediary?
We couldn't even get to the family, Clayton. That's another strange thing that we can discuss. I couldn't even get to them. And I ended up calling one of the biggest firms in Utah. First and foremost, they started screaming on the phone. I got a very rude response that only SCORDIS is allowed to is allowed to find a representation for Tyler Robinson. Well, let me tell you who SCORDIS is. So SCORDIS is a guy who's running as a state prosecutor. So here's the problem with that. State prosecutor cannot be responsible to find a lawyer for a defendant. That's illegal.
Right, that they're choosing their own opponent.